TheFrostyBlur back with a different kind of video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at Mad Max. It's a new game coming out on the 1st of September. It will be produced by Warner Brothers Entertainment, and I won't even get into their last piece of crap, but I was looking at the specifications released a couple of days ago, and I will give my expert opinion on them. So let's start with the minimum specifications. On the CPU side of things, it starts off with an Intel Core i5 650 3.2 GHz and an AMD Phenom 2 X4 965 3.4 GHz. So if you built your PC in the last 2 years or even year, you really should have something better than that if you're expecting to run good games. But most people will have that, so that's actually good to see that a CPU released a couple of years ago is still on the minimum specifications. I never thought that would actually happen. For GPUs, it recommends a GeForce GTX 660 Ti 2GB model and a Radeon HD 7870 2GB model. Again, with those GPUs, if you built your PC in the last year or two, you should have something better than that. Most GPUs these days are at least 4GB or 3.5GB. So really, you should have something better than that. For RAM, it's just 6GB. So really, I'm pretty sure most PCs will have more than 6GB. If you got 4GB of RAM, I'm sorry, but I doubt you'll be able to run this game at medium settings even if you only have 4GB. But most PCs will have 6GB, so that really isn't a problem. Now we move on to the recommended specs, and as for CPUs, it's an Intel i7 3770, my mistake, 4-core processor at 3.4 GHz and an AMD FX 8350 4.0 GHz. So those CPUs are pretty high end in my opinion. That Intel i7, it probably isn't needed to run the game. I'm pretty sure any i5, medium i5 or something like that can run that game. You don't even have to have it overclocked in my opinion. For the AMD, I'm pretty sure that that's able to run any game. I'm not even sure about AMD because I don't know that much about AMD actually, sorry about that. But as for the Intel, I'm pretty sure Intel Core i5 should run it medium, easy. Any medium Intel Core i5 should actually run this game pretty well. It doesn't have to be overclocked in my opinion. Just one more point on the CPU side of things. It does look like it probably will use more than 2 cores, so those dual cores probably won't work. You probably will need a quad core processor, 4 cores, to get this game to run well. So I'm sorry for those Intel i3 processors. Those CPUs are just not cutting it anymore with video games on PC. It's just not cutting it. I'm sorry, if you have an Intel i3 processor, do not keep it. You should probably upgrade it come Christmas or something to a Intel i5, or I recommend the i7 because a lot of these games recommends the i7s now, so I do recommend you get i7, and especially now that Intel is going to be releasing i9s. I think it's an i9, I'm not too sure. I think they're moving on from the i7, so I really recommend you should get an i7 for future titles. For GPUs, it recommends a GeForce GTX 760 and a Radeon HD 7970. Alright, that Radeon HD, even though I don't know much about AMD, I know that GPU is actually a lot better than the GTX 960. So that probably will worry a lot of AMD customers that it listed a GPU that high. Maybe this is made for Nvidia, like a lot of titles are now. They're using Nvidia software and everything. So if I was an AMD customer right there, I would probably worry a little bit. But again, the company that's making this game does great PC ports, so I wouldn't worry too much. I'm pretty sure that the company making this game wouldn't leave AMD's customers hanging like Dying Light and all that, so I wouldn't worry too much. But that GPU is a lot better than the GTX 760. But I'm sure if you have a GeForce GTX 970 or 980 Ti, you can run this game at ultra settings. And I'm sure most AMD GPUs will be able to run this game at high to ultra settings. I am sorry in advance, I do not know anything about AMD. I'm just a Nvidia fanboy and Intel fanboy, so sorry for you AMD watchers. As for RAM, it recommends 8GB. That's the same with most games. I wouldn't recommend going over 8 GB. 8 GB usually does the job. After all benchmarks you see on YouTube or anything, the game hardly ever goes over 8 GB, or even 7 GB in that case. So 8 GB is a must if you want to play a game of Ultra, and it's the most you need. You don't need to go out and get 16 GB. I wouldn't really recommend that unless you wanted to do video editing or something. But you know, any more than 8 GB isn't needed for playing video games on PC anymore. So it was never needed in the first place, but 8 GB really does the job cleanly actually. So I recommend you have 8 GB. You should have at least 8 GB if you're even planning on playing this game. So 8 GB usually and will do it for you. And hard disk drive space is 32 GB. So that's actually a large game, but compared to a lot of titles coming out these days like Titanfall 50 GB, that isn't as much, but it's still large. So you should have probably at least a terabyte hard drive space or something, so you can actually fit this game in. So as for the specs on the recommended, I probably wouldn't. The CPU, nah, I don't think that's really needed. I'll go for any mid-range i5. Overclock it if you want to, but I'm pretty sure any mid-range i5 can do the job. As for GeForce GTX 760, honestly I'm not sure about that GPU. I would still recommend you get a 950 or that new 950 that came out, or a 960. Or if you want to go higher up, go for GeForce GTX 970. That's a nice mid-range card. Or if you want to go like high-end, go get a 980 Ti, but most GPUs will be able to run this game. As for RAM, 8 GB is what I recommend. 16 GB is not needed these days. 4 GB it barely run the game. So 8 GB is in the middle. It's recommended by these game developers, and you really should have it. As for hard disk drive space, I really can't do anything about that. 32 GB is probably okay, especially in this day and age. But obviously we would like it to be around 25 or 20 GB, but it's probably going to be a massive game. So 34 or 30 over 30 GB is fine with me. So at the end of the day, I think almost any mid-range gaming PC can run this on high settings, and you have a high-end rig, you should run out Ultra no problem. Now, do I think the game's going to be a good port? And I have to say, yes, I do. I think the game developers, they're making Just Cause. They made Just Cause 2. That's one of the best ports ever on PC. So personally, I think it's going to be a great port. Even with Warner Brothers, I don't think they're going to fuck up like they did with Arkham Knight. They lost a lot of money with that, with Steam refunds. So I don't think they'll be that silly to do the job again. So I will be getting this game on day 1, September the 1st. I will upload some gameplay videos if you want, maybe some benchmarks, I'm not sure. My other rig has an AMD in there, but you know, it's complete crap, it won't run the game. So I can't really do benchmarks, but I will release some gameplay on my gaming rig, which consists of a GTX 970 and an Intel Core i5 470 I forget what the CPU is. I honestly change it all the time, so on Christmas I will be getting a i7, so it doesn't really matter. But personally, I'm looking forward to this game, and I recommend you should get it. Don't pre-order. Do not pre-order. Just don't pre-order, okay? Don't pre-order the game. Just don't do that. That's not smart. You still, even with me saying I think it's going to be a good port, there's always a massive chance with Warner Brothers or any game developer these days that the game will completely be fucked, like Arkham Knight, which we all did think it was going to be a good port, but at the end of the day, obviously it was not a good port. It was probably the worst port ever on PC. I personally think it was worse than AC Unity. So I recommend that you wait maybe a day or two until we see some PC reviews. I personally will be getting the game on day 1 because I believe myself, but I do recommend, if you don't have the money really, and you don't have that much money at all, and this is just like a one-time game you want to get, or even if you get a dozen games, I don't really care, but I do recommend that you do not pre-order this game, or so I recommend you wait to at least day 1 to see some reviews and see if it actually is a good game for PC. So yes, that is the video. I hope you liked it. It's my first try at this. It took me a while to make it because I kept messing up everywhere, but if you did enjoy, hit that like button, it really helps a lot, and I will see you in the next one.